Well, I don't think you can say that unless you have evidence which shows you that the president was involved. Quite clearly, I think where the president needs to account to the people is that he hasn't actually made a proper public statement about that, but that's not the same as the damage control exercise. You can't assume that the government's covering anything up unless you have evidence that there's anything that they're not telling us, and so far there's no such evidence. So I think that's a bit premature, and I think people are jumping to conclusions.
Gwede Mantashe earlier today said that President Jacob Zuma didn't need to explain his relationship with the Gupta family. Do you agree with that sentiment?
No, he does need to explain it. We all know that there is a relationship. It's certainly assumed that there's a relationship. If there isn't a relationship, he ought to tell us. If you have a situation where people who are close to the president are accused of abusing power, then it's very important that the president do explain what he's doing, what the relationship is. So no, I think that the public is owed an explanation and is owed a statement by the president.
What do you make of this report so far?
Well, the report says so far that people got away with pretending that they had authorization, which they didn't. I don't think that that's impossible. It's being assumed by a lot of people that that somebody in high places must have given the instruction and that's being covered up. But we don't know that for sure. So at the moment, I think that the fact that government has investigated this is very important. That's not automatic in many societies. The fact that they do claim that they're holding some people responsible is important, and you don't get that in every society. Obviously, if evidence comes to the light that there are things they're not telling us, that needs to be aired, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of public anger.
Some people are saying that this indicates that we have a weak state because you got two government officials who could manipulate something like 200 other people in order to get the Gupta family what they wanted. What do you make of that?
Yes, I think that's a legitimate statement. I think that we have to look at that very carefully. The Gupta family are not the only family who seem to have access to people in government. One of our biggest problems as a society is that the relationships between people in business and people in government are sometimes very cozy, sometimes at the expense of us, the public. So yes, a state where somebody can get away with dropping a name and getting something done for them is a weak state, and that has to be fixed.
This whole situation of national key point versus strategic key point, what's the difference? And some are saying this has come as a surprise. Is it really a surprise?
Well, it is a bit of a surprise, but in a sense, national key point is a hangover from the apartheid period. The apartheid government called things national key points to prevent the media writing about them. You could argue that in a democratic society we shouldn't have any national key points at all. But of course, those people who think that national key points are important are saying, look, here was a facility which was of strategic importance to the country. It's a military airbase. And if you downgrade it from a national key point, then you're minimizing what was done. I think that misses the point. I mean, the real issue here is not security. Our security was not threatened by a bunch of wedding guests. The real issue here is private people using resources which belong to the people of South Africa, and that's the case whether or not it's a national key point.
Should there be an independent investigation?
I think that there's a very good argument for it. If there clearly is public concern about this, I think that public concern would be dealt with, would be eased if somebody who was quite clearly independent from government did investigate. I think that we need to be careful as a society about being too cynical. The fact that government has investigated this is a very important step forward for the society. But I think it's true to say that if we had an entirely independent investigation, then it would be even more of a breakthrough for democratic government.